Jean is here now. Hi,
Okay.
Eugene. Hi, Zachary.
So should I make Eugene a host or a co-host? But I can't make him a host yet because I have to share the screen, right? Because once I make him a host, I'm out.
Or you can be a co-host, or you can be a host, or make him a host after you swear the sheets.
Okay.
Share the screen. Anyway, after the applicant has finished their presentation, there will be questions from the committee members. Committee members present in the room are Brian Pape, Anita Brandt, Valerie De La Rosa, and me, Susan Gammy. I'm the vice chair who's presiding because Chenault Spence, the chair, is not here this evening. And we also are joined remotely by Eugene Yu and Zachary Roberts. So we will have an opportunity to question and speak further with the applicant. And after that, any member of the public is encouraged to speak. Should anybody have any questions they want answered or have anything relevant to say. And then we'll just move along through the agenda. After we've seen all four applications, we'll move to the business session. Everybody, applicants, public, everybody is more than welcome to stay for that. Understanding, please, that only committee members are able to, and community board members who may be attending remotely are able to speak during that period of time.
Are you in, Valerie? Because I don't see you.
I'm a panelist.
She's right there.
Oh.
So,
Okay, so I'm going to start sharing the screen. Is that okay?
so yeah, unless there are any hesitations, let's move to 17 Barrow Street. So,
Do you need me to? You can come closer to be by the microphone.
Wait, so what do I do? Just share? Because I haven't done this. He just told me because the screen, just walk over him.
If anybody needs to.
Come closer. Share, okay, and where is my chat?
17 Barrow Street, the application is to install a metal grate at the stoop entrance.
Okay, I'm trying to,
One of your. Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
I'm trying to get to add you. How do I add Eugene now? I don't know.
If you go to the list, I know,
And
participant.
here's Eugene. He's muted.
Yeah.
Make a host or a co-host?
Well, this is my daughter, Lena,
Co-host.
so
Co-host?
Yeah.
You don't have it on, so they can put it on the.
Thanks.
I have it on, I think they have it on the
Only
screen.
because they don't have it to look at.
Okay, that's on screen.
Oh, okay, never mind. Great.
It's on you.
Okay, now who's the host now after this? If he's the well, Eugene can handle it and make somebody else the host, right?
No, he's the co-host, that's good. This is the host computer.
All right, so are you guys good then?
Yep.
All right,
Thank you.
I'll be next door for a
Good,
little.
thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
All right, 17 Barrow Street.
Hi, I'm Lena Goujon. I have currently lived at 17 Barrow Street with my mother, Colleen Goujon, the owner of the property. I grew up in the West Village, raised right around here, and I live above the restaurant. So I've been experiencing a lot of sort of safety and security issues recently. I'm sure it's been a common issue. Ever since COVID, we've been dealing with a lot of transient and unfortunately unhoused population.
Yes, before you go too far into
Yes.
that, understand that we all live in the community as well.
Yes,
And are really familiar with the situation.
I'm sure.
So I think what we're really here to do is to look at what
Yes.
you
what
are
you're
proposing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I think then we can go through the slides and sort of get straight to the point. What we're proposing is we've worked with a company that has built, I believe, some other stoops or gates in the neighborhood. And we'd like to do a very simple gate.
It's a non-decorative iron gate that is similar to the banister railing that you see on the stoop right now. It's about 1.5 inches in width. It's just simple black iron, and The gate itself will be simple and black, non-decorative. It'll be attached at the lower banister by hinges, and the latch itself will be non-decorative. And if we scroll through,
Look at the.
Which button, so I don't hit the wrong one, which one? Oh,
That's advanced.
I can't. Can you handle it? Did you get you,
she's young. I'm
you're
like,
running the presentation?
Yeah.
All right, so here is where we are located, 17 Barrow Street. If you'd like, I'll press next.
Yes, thank
We don't need that. We're
Okay.
good.
So, this is our stoop.
That's the old.
This
photos.
is some old historic photos that we've received from the Landmarks Committee.
Same banister that we're looking to put the gate on.
So these are just different viewpoints of the banister, which was recommended from Landmarks that we present. And then here's the detail from what's existing.
And you can see that we are sort of on a commercial area where we have a restaurant on the left side, which is looking south, and then on the right, we've got a sports bar that's really active and busy all the time. And then directly across the street is a parking garage. At the end of the block is a theater, and there's several other restaurants. So it's a pretty commercial little strip. It's not full of row houses, so my feeling is that a gate will not distract things or make it look unpleasant. I mean, because it'll be so simple, it'll just blend right in. We can see right here a simple illustration of a very basic non-decorative gate. And it's the name of the company is Petrilla Ironwork LLC. They did a similar gate just a few months ago on
Next to the 7-Eleven on West Third, is that what you said, West Third Street? They did,
this is the gate that they did at 133 West 4th Street by the same ironwork company. Theirs is a little more decorative. They have detail work on theirs. We have zero detail.
we're just looking to match the historical,
The integrity of the area and keep it harmonious. Just keep us safe as well, because I have a granddaughter now and it's been very unsavory.
So I'm wondering, before we get into the,
Sorry, Brian, sorry to interrupt. Is that are you done with your presentation?
We were advised to show
I'll show you
some
other
gates.
metal gates in the neighborhood that was approved by Landmarks. Ours is definitely way simpler than. And that's it.
Okay, well, let's move to the committee now, Brian, and then I would have a question which may very well be the same as yours.
well, first of all, I noticed right away that the depiction from your company is not at all the steps that are in extent on site. You know, you have about 5 steps, they only show 3. It just, doesn't match up. And that's not a make or break thing. I'm just wondering about the inaccuracy when they go to the trouble of doing a shop drawing like this. I think that the real crux that we're going to hear from others as well is that we really feel that gating stoops is a contradiction of the historic district.
Right.
And we have to wonder whether this type of gate would actually make that much of a difference.
Right.
Security wise,
Right.
safety wise, because we feel that the real security point is at your wall,
Mhm.
at your doors, at your windows, and that sort of thing.
I hear that, and I can see that perhaps their shop drawing didn't depict the 5 steps, but the gate, I think, is probably true to what they'd like to propose. And to be frank, I never wanted to add a gate. The last thing that I want to do as a long-term resident is create a barrier to the community. It feels weird. But unfortunately, like it has gotten to the point where I have seen some really dangerous activity that has occurred on that doorstep where I have felt uncomfortable to leave my door with my daughter or even by myself and just ask someone to leave my step. Although I don't ever want to create a barrier because we're not living in fortresses here, we're living in a community. It's just, I've seen some unconsensual sexual relations. I've seen really, really.
We
really
know, I
bad
mean,
things.
we are active, living people here, so
I
I,
just
you
like
know,
to stress that.
no, and that.
And I'm sorry that you've had to experience that.
Yeah, it's,
Uh,
I understand the concern of making it feel like we're, locking ourselves and we don't want to do that. It's just, we haven't had.
No, we're a historic preservation
Right.
group. We're not security analysts.
Right.
We're really just protecting a
100%.
district. Can I jump in or you wanna?
That's awful.
I'm sorry, go ahead, go.
Wait, no, that's like really awful to hear. Not that I don't want to hear. I'm just saying, that's terrible. I'm sorry that you've had.
Well, we do live in a melting pot of a lot of things over
Yeah, trust me,
here.
and I love the diversity
Diversity
that
that we
this
have.
community brings, and that's why I never want to live anywhere else, but unfortunately, I'd love to find a way to
Well,
respect.
let her ask her question.
Yeah.
Let's move it
So
on.
my question has to do with the visual aspects of this. We'll table the discussion of the meaning of the gate
Of
for our
course.
business session. But I do have a question.
Sure.
Obviously, as you know, we are the Landmarks Committee. We're very concerned about maintaining the
Integrity.
visual integrity and respect for these buildings. I mean, it's a particularly wonderful building that
Yes.
you have here. And the choice of metalwork I know that this did not originally have a gate, but had it had a gate, your choice of metalwork seems extremely discordant with the building itself. And I am concerned about that, and I'm wondering why you made a conscious choice to go in a non-decorative way, particularly when all your examples are decorative.
Well, I
Right.
mean, it just has some curve.
Honestly, I think we are open to whatever the
Yeah.
committee proposes. I just feel we would like to work with whatever you guys like. And we are 100% open to it. It's just, we aren't architects, so it's hard to navigate, but we are here, we are ready to listen. And any feedback.
Yeah, thank you, because this tends to look like something that just sort of came out of a page of a catalog, which the inaccuracy of the drawing tends to support. And so I think,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to see something that isn't more visually evolved and appealing.
Good lead in. I have the same, well, I guess I'll just speak freely. It makes it easier than trying to be clever. Right now, it's the barest minimum railing you could have in the universe.
Right.
I don't think, maybe, and then you don't even add a newel post or a post at the bottom where the gate is gonna be wiggling this little post. It may be strong enough, but it doesn't feel strong
Mhm.
enough. So if I were you and wanted a nice result, not just a gate, I would go back to the drawing board. And I would propose, it doesn't have to be a duplicate of a historic railing, but inspired by one. So you have to spend a little money. You have to replace those posts and that way you're bringing something back and you're protecting it. And then the gate doesn't have to be just,
Right,
highway on Queens or
Right,
somewhere.
right.
Go for it.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I respect that and we will certainly go back to the drawing board. But I would love any counsel in terms of, maybe as what you suggest could be somewhat affordable. And
Well, this says you have to do some work. It's not
Well, there
easy.
were some, there were
You
some
have to
pretty
be
gates
clever.
here.
100%.
Doesn't all cost money, it costs brains. You have to use your
I mean,
brain.
I would like to get more creative.
Or
if
get
we-
somebody who
if
knows
we're
how to do
allowed-
it.
If we're allowed to be more creative.
Yeah,
I
we
would
will take
gladly-
Well, well, I'm telling you, listen, this is what you're being offered right now. This, for example, again, these are stock items. But you have to have somebody who knows what they're doing to do it.
Okay.
I also think you have to plan more details. Do you have a closer? How does it operate? Are you putting a pin in? You know, all of those things.
Well, there's a,
Flesh it out and make it feel not just like, oh my God, we're gonna have to just like put a bar up.
Sure.
So those are my suggestions. I do think it looks very sad.
100%. Honestly, we worked with LPC on how to even come up with this presentation, and they said to do whatever matched our railing, which is a sad railing.
it is.
Well,
I agree.
this is your time to do it. You're not gonna do it, come back later. This is like a little give and take, in my opinion.
Sure.
I would.
Then you
love
can
more
sell it.
money.
You're gonna go, look, we
Yeah.
really brought this back, but we still need security.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
buy it.
Yeah.
And also, I do think you should point out that it's not, it might be the only stoop on this stretch.
It might be.
One of them.
Well,
Yeah,
there's
so
not
how-
many. That would be good for your
Yeah,
presentation.
but there's definitely not a row of houses. It's
No,
like-
I know, but I don't even think, I know this block.
Yeah.
And there's very few.
Right, I don't think there's.
If any, if any.
I don't think there's another stoop anywhere, and
Well,
I would
that's
like
important.
to do a decorative, a more attractive.
Yeah, we're happy to make it beautiful. I think.
Well, you
we
have to
just-
spend,
I'm
some,
really
you have to find the right people to help you. I don't think you should expect yourself to be able to do it. Unless you have a really creative iron guy, but this
Okay.
guy is just, yeah.
Okay.
He took care of your question, bam, but we asked for more.
Sure.
Okay, is there anybody else from the committee? Brian?
Well,
you
I
had something.
I do want to point out that the historic photos show that the 1940s and that designation, you know, the railing is there.
Yeah.
So it's, we don't know what it was when it was built.
Right,
Tell me.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
this is a late federal style row house. This is from the 1820s, 27, 29. So they had a style that was duplicated. It's very simple. It's a
Yeah, I mean, the
simple
whole
style.
stoop is new. You can tell that the stone slabs or it's a very contemporary look.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely would be willing to spend money to make a nicer, for me, it would look more pleasing to my eye.
Right.
So should we not follow this?
The old look that's here and do and come back to you with something. Do we need to come
You have to
again?
make that decision. I think it's too bare to close up the front. It just feels imbalanced.
Okay.
Well,
I mean,
still
you
should
don't
be-
mind the kids falling off the edge of the landing,
No,
but heaven
of
forbid
course not.
you walk up
No.
the step. You know,
Yeah.
it's incongruous.
So
Yeah.
it should follow a federal style look
It's a-
rather than.
Inspired by late
Okay.
federal, that's my
Oh,
opinion.
okay, I like
We're
that
here to
idea.
listen and.
I like that idea.
Yeah, and it's a
Walk around the neighborhood and you'll see
simple style.
how people have done this
Well,
in a
yeah.
less utilitarian fashion.
Right, you have a lot of photographic examples.
And you, within your own presentation, you have
Exactly.
examples. Okay, so, we're done here. Zach, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just note to the applicants, since I'm sure this is your first application, we'll have a business session after we discussed all the applications, and then we'll put together a resolution. So I would just look to the resolution that we put together and notes from that before you run out and do anything, because we'll write in there what our opinion is. So
Okay,
definitely listen to comments in the room, but there will be an official resolution as well.
okay, thank you.
Zach.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Good, thank you. Zach. Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay.
We do have one more comment.
Yeah.
Seems that we have we have to legalize the transom. Is that part of the application?
The transom,
I don't
okay, we
know.
had nothing to do with that transom, that I don't know where that came from, but I'm working with landmarks to get that legalized, the transom.
So you want to leave it as it is?
Yes, I feel like the quirkiness of it fits in very nicely with the, it's very harmonious to the building and it feels,
But that was always there before.
yeah, it's always been there.
we-
We never,
And is that part of this application? Is
there a violation?
in the
no, there's no violation.
violation, but it's not listed in the,
However, we want to legalize it with landmarks.
okay, so that's being handled at staff level?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak? You see if there's any raised hands?
It does not look like there's any raised hands.
We're good, Eugene?
It looks like, yeah, I don't think there's any questions.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you.
so
so much. Yeah.
For sharing with us.
It's a learning process.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in person too.
Yeah.
Nice, we like that.
Okay, 27 East 11th. Is the applicant here? Yes.
I am.
Hi.
Good evening.
Application is to modify existing fourth floor rear facade and skylight configuration and modify the terrace.
That's us.
That's you, of
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for making time for us.
course.
My name is Todd Ernst. I'm the architect for the project. This is Sean Gunther. He's my project manager. And our assistant project manager, Alex, is sitting right here in the back row. And they've put together this presentation with me and actually for me of our project. And just to tell you a little story about it, it's a Greek revival townhouse on East 11th Street, just off University. And it's in a row of almost identical townhouses from the 1840s. And we are currently renovating the townhouse, pretty much a full interior renovation, and doing some preservation work on the facade. And as part of our design, we want to basically rebuild the fourth floor rear facade of this structure, which is pre-existing and was approved in 2012, 2013 under a separate application by a different architect. And just to be very frank, that renovation was not very well done. And we're actually intervening and correcting a lot of things that were done in that prior renovation. And tonight, we're going to show you kind of the heart of the matter. And you can see, I'm sorry, just to speak to the slide, in front of that really interesting old car is our building. And as you can see, this is a row, and it's currently still existing in this format of the townhouses. And in the Greenwich Village Historic District map, you can see we're right on the very eastern edge of the district. The northeastern corner up there where we have the note site location. And I believe this is Sean, the 1940s tax photo, correct? Correct. Okay, so you can go to the next slide. And this gives you more context for our project. The upper left corner slide shows a block plan, and the red rectangle is our townhouse. And then the slide below that is a Google Earth view that shows our townhouse in the middle of that row, very similar row houses. And this slide also helps speak to something Landmarks is always focused on, which is called the donut of the block. And our application is trying to be very respectful of what remains of the original donut. And the work we're doing actually follows the exact configuration of what was approved previously. We're just reconstructing it in a better fashion. And the slide on the right is a zoom in that shows the exact area of work that we're talking about tonight. You can go to the next slide. So what Sean and Alex did was they did a comparative study of Sanborn maps throughout time to show the evolution of that donut or the negative space of the block. And the rectangle, red rectangle, indicates our building throughout these kind of permutations. And you can see the donut was pretty much intact as a donut hole in 1867. But by 1955, just our stretch of the block had the remnants of that donut hole due to development primarily on Fifth Avenue and then tenant buildings on 11th Street. But we're obviously cognizant of this and very respectful in our redesign. And this is a newer Sanborn map that just shows that context as well. These are photo exhibits. The the 1940s tax photo on the left, a recent photo from the 80s that showed out of control wisteria growing on the building, and then a recent photo of the facade just before we started our renovation project this past year. And you can see that it's a very intact, historically correct Greek Revival row house from the front. And just to say that everything we're doing or talking about tonight is not visible from any public thoroughfare. So we're only talking about the rear facade. Now we go to the rear elevations of our subject property in the middle, which is 27 East 11th, and then our two neighbors, 25 to the west and 29 to the east. And just to also mention that our building was renovated, substantially renovated in 2012 and 2013. The building to the right, 25, got a landmarks permit in 2022 and is undergoing a massive renovation right now. And 29 was approved in 2020 and also undergoing a tremendous renovation. And just to, the point I'm also trying to make is these rear facades have evolved over time, and our neighbors are undergoing an extensive redo right now. You can go to the next slide. This was, oh, hey, buddy. Oh, it's okay. I love that.
He's
I'm a
wandering.
dog person. So this was our townhouse before the prior applicant's application. And one thing Landmarks talked to me a lot about was a unique feature was this wooden sort of bay that was added to the house at some point in history. And they said they worked very closely with the prior applicant to preserve it or recreate it. We're not touching it, although we're going to do some maintenance work on it. But this was the main feature of the rear facade. And it's something that we're actually not doing any intervention on at this point. But just, I like to show the prior application so you can see where we're going with ours.
Yeah.
Right. And this is also from the prior application, and this does hone in on our area of work. The top left slide shows 3 punch windows at the 4th floor with an air conditioner sticking out and a fireplace flue and boiler flue and some other stuff. So this is the actual location that we're talking about tonight. And in the renovation that took place in 2012, they reconstructed this entire area and they created a terrace adjacent to it. You can go to the next slide, Sean. So this is some photos we took before we started our construction. And just to be very frank and somewhat crass, it was a very poorly designed renovation, not very sensitive to, I would say, the historic feel of a townhouse in the West Village. And it's something Sean and Alex and I are working on to kind of bring it back to that feel. This is a very suburban feeling intervention, and it's not a very urban, sophisticated approach to a facade. So we're working on that, and hopefully our result will be much better. But then you can keep going, Sean. This is the current roof deck. Again, it could be anywhere. You know, it doesn't necessarily speak to the West Village with glass railings and whatnot, but our scope is not really, for tonight, is not really up here, but just to show you the context of what was done previously, you can go to the next slide. And again, now we see what the prior applicant had done with that level. The top left slide shows the 2 punch windows and French doors in the middle. Very kind of schlocky, poorly done. The terrace is leaking, and you can see it even looks bad. And I think the doors are like some kind of suburban Pella version of a French door. So they don't really speak to what Landmarks had me focus on with the bay of the back of the house that was highly articulated. So what Sean and Alex and I have done is we're gonna redo this facade that you're looking at right there and the sloping surface above. That skylight is another major component of tonight's application. Oh, it's okay. And this is a very commercial grade Velux skylight that you get at like Home Depot or someplace like that. And it's incongruous with what you would see in a West Village top floor artist garret that would have been constructed, say, in the 1920s or 30s. And our client is heavily involved in the arts and has her art studio, or she's planning to have her art studio in the space on the 4th floor. So what we're trying to do is create for her a really positive environment for creating art, but also harkens back to those artist garrets of the village, which are a huge part of the village history. And Sean and Alex have also specified a glazing system, fenestration system that's a lighter metal, a dark bronze, lighter metal, much more delicate, that would tie in with what you would see with those industrial skylights that were put on these types of houses back, the 20s, 30s, and 40s. But you can go from to the next slide, Sean. This is the evolution of the facade, just in an architectural two-dimensional drawing from the left. The original facade before the prior application, the prior applicant's facade, and then the proposed. So again, what people will see from the street is historically very accurate and correct. You can go to the next slide, Sean. This is that rear facade that I was talking about. The one on the far left is prior to the 2012 renovation, where you see that wood frame bay, which was a major characteristic of that facade, with a curving access stair that was removed. And you can see in the elevation to the right, the second and third floor levels of the bay were preserved or reconstructed. But then on the third floor, French doors were added, where there were punch windows and another door. And then on the 4th level, you see the 2 punch windows with a new terrace. And that's really the area that we're focusing on tonight, plus that skylight above, which is, not articulated. It's large panes of glass. And this is the prior landmarks application, shows the context of the pre-existing with the 2 adjacent buildings. You can go to the next slide. This is the current with the 2 adjacent buildings, our subject properties in the middle. And then this is a montage of our new design, which you can see the more articulated skylight with more mullions and smaller panes of glass, plus more articulated fenestration on that 4th floor level. Plus, you can see what our neighbors are currently constructing. So these were applications that were approved in 2020 and 2022. So there's in this evolution, there's actually consistency with what we're trying to do that the neighbors are currently constructing. And again, Sean is showing the blow-ups of the areas of focus. So the top left is the existing that's surrounded by that dash rectangle, and the top right is our proposed design. This is a photo montage of what was existing before the neighbors started work. You can see the rear facades are not, they're interesting. They're actually somewhat industrial. And now you can see what the proposed is. Obviously, the left and right are renderings. And then Sean and Alex photoshopped our proposed design into a photo of the current rear elevation. So it kind of lightens up as the building gets taller. And again, it makes that allusion to that kind of classic West Village artist garret at the top. Just another kind of side-by-side comparison. The top is the existing condition. The bottom is the proposed. And also we're going to put in, right now there's a liquid membrane roof that surrounds that very planar skylight. And we're going to do a zinc-coated copper standing seam roof, which is a lot more traditional approach than like a high-tech membrane roof, to give it, again, another level of texture and detail. And Sean and Alex put together this material sheet where you can see the zinc coated copper on the left and recycled brick, and also speaking to the terrace itself, which is in really bad condition and leaking into the house. We're going to completely reconstruct that and put new limestone pavers on that. You can go to the next. These are just diagrammatic overlays of our building relative to the adjacent buildings. Something that the commissioners always look for is like, how does our building relate in profile to the neighbors? And we're very sympathetic with the neighbors. And again, this is from the other direction, very sympathetic. Sight lines are very sympathetic, and nothing's visible from the public thoroughfare. Go to the next slide, Sean. And again, our rear yard's on the right side, so nothing obviously visible from the public thoroughfare. Next slide. And I apologize for all the slides, but I'd like to be just very clear. With
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then, so again, Sean's honing in on the area of work, which is the 3rd floor roof, which is the 4th floor terrace, and that skylight above the artist garret. These are just architectural diagrams showing the alignment of the fenestration and actually how the current design has no alignment with its own skylight. And in our proposed design, our new skylight will align with the masonry openings of the French doors. So it gets a kind of neoclassical symmetry that you would see in a Greek revival townhouse. And again, Sean and Alex are just zooming in with technical drawings on the area of work. Oh, no, just to say, go back one, Sean. You can see in the slide on the right where the interior staircase comes up into the space. That interior space is the art studio, which will be, the client does a lot of ceramics and stuff like that. So this will be her kind of creative space. Just so you understand what we're enclosing and kind of improving for our client. Again, the close-ups. And here, this is probably the most powerful slide of the presentation. Sean and Alex have put a darker tone on our subject property. And on the left, just looking at the kind of top section where you see the sloping skylight, that's the existing condition. There's also exposed Mitsubishi air conditioners just above our sloping skylight. And in the right slide is our proposed design, which is a lot more lighter and I think articulated and with more appropriate materials. And also Alex and Sean are screening the air conditioning system from the rear yard and from the neighbors who are opposite us in the donut. There's a very large group of quasi-commercial buildings. So this will be better for them. They won't be looking right into our air conditioners. And again, this is a close-up slide of that. Technically, it's an axionometric diagram. You can see the neighbor to the right is a very similar design. And to the left, they kind of, it's an improvement from what was there, but I don't think it's as sophisticated as what our neighbor to the right is doing. This is the damage that Sean and the construction team found in the terrace. There had been a lot of water damage and rot and mold growth, and it was very poorly constructed and destined for like complete failure. So we're reconstructing this, what we call the floor diaphragm, in a much more robust kind of long-term investment in the structure way. Typically with terraces, we like to construct them out of concrete and waterproof them as if they're almost like a pool or a fountain, because they're subject to all kinds of leak issues in townhouses and larger co-op buildings. And, you know, these days with water, it's a nightmare. And Sean and Alex have also worked out a new drainage system for this terrace. So this is just a technical drawing of that terrace, which is part of our application. And here are just some blow-up sections of the terrace. And all the profiles will match what's there right now. It's just reconstructed in a much better way. And details of our skylight has an integrated shading system and the waterproofing at the French doors. more details of the skylight. And this is our window schedule, which the landmarks staff likes to see. And our specifications are also included. And that's our presentation.
Okay.
So thanks for listening. It was a lot of hot air.
A lot of work.
Appreciate the work.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
on staff. They're great.
Detail that went into that. And also, I might add, I personally appreciate your accrediting your team.
That's right. That's
I'm-
refreshing.
I wouldn't be sitting here right here.
Very nice.
Yeah.
To see. So just have to know.
Thanks.
All right. Anita,
It's fine. I love all the technical drawings. I mean, clearly, the building is going to be good for a long time, and that's what we like to do. We don't want to waste our time or our efforts. The only comment I have is the skylight is better, but not great. I don't think any of them, they look so short and fat. And the beauty of an artist's north light skylight is that they're long. Well, it's about proportions. Let's not talk about money just yet, because I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't know if there was a way that you could elongate it, it would be very elegant. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, that's a great observation, actually, because, you know, we look at skylights literally at buildings across the street from this. There are, you know, these kind of larger, almost like contraption-like thing with expansive glass. And what we did in this situation, we're kind of pushing our budget envelope as it is. We tried to work within the existing structure that the prior applicant left for us, and we're trying to fit something more elegant in. But we could look at possibly expanding that.
It's not, you can do optical illusions. I mean, you have now that it steps back. It's a game, you know, I don't know that you're gonna tear out the whole thing, but I'm just saying as we're here to evaluate. And I would say that that would really make it look, even the one next to it, the proportions are better.
Right. That's great feedback.
I'd like to piggyback on that just for a second, because you've made a tremendous and very largely successful effort to recreate the atelier, the characteristic atelier of a Greenwich Village studio. And I think, you know, consideration of a shift of proportion of that light, of the skylight, into something that is more typically part of the vocabulary scale-wise, you know, would bolster.
It's very romantic too. I mean, trust me, you'll get your money back.
All right, Brian?
Well, I think especially in you're in the midst of a construction site, you know, the whole street is blocked
Yeah.
off, plywood and
It's
everything.
chaos over there.
Yeah.
But they're restoring the front stoops. And especially with what your neighbors are doing. I think it all fits very well.
Yeah. Agreed.
Congratulations.
Yeah, very
Thank you.
nice, thank you. Valerie?
No, it's so, and I see Albert has a question as well. I mean, it's so refreshing to see how much effort you really put in to bring it back to the vocabulary of the neighborhood and the district, so.
I just have one really quick question. Is Landmarks calling, or your staff person calling your back feature a tea house? Did they use that word
They
at
did
all?
not use that word. We're working with Ryan Zeke and Emma Waterloo.
Well, that's very characteristic of revival, and very few remain, so that's, may not be that exact one, but it certainly has all the characteristics.
Okay.
And they're very adamant about protecting those, and most of them are right.
All right, Albert, good to see you.
Yes, am I really on?
You are.
It took 20 minutes to get here tonight.
Oh, dear.
I just have a general question, please. Throughout the presentation, you refer to the previous application, which seems to overlap your new application. And I would like to know what the status of that previous application is.
Albert, that's a very good question. The previous application was signed off with landmarks. And when we took over this project, it had a complete certificate of occupancy, which they could not get unless they signed off landmark.
Okay,
Thanks, good question.
All right, is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak? Nobody, Eugene?
I do not see any hands raised in the public.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
So we'll move on to the next one.
Thank you, board member. Thank you.
Next one is 560 Broadway. The application is to install signage, awnings, flagpole, and flag, install louvers, paint at the exterior windows, and install double doors in an existing door opening. The mouthful. All right.
Probably the most controversial.
Yes. Imagine.
Sorry, let's, I don't know.
So if you hit that button. I don't know, I don't know if it's downloaded, but I don't know what your file name is, but you can.
There you go.
But then present too.
Yeah, it's gonna follow everybody else.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Andy. This is my colleague Liam Pullihan. We're with Atchison Door Partners Architects. I'm the architect, reservation consultant for Aritzia, located at 560 Broadway. You guys might actually know this better as the Dean and DeLuca building, because that's what's been there for 30 years, ever since I was a kid, going up and down the street. So next slide, please. We're going to go through a few things here today: the history of building, the existing building, the proposed exterior design for the awnings, the flagpole, and proposed development of the exterior facade. So first, to start off, to give everybody kind of a feel for where we are today, this is an aerial view of the project site. This photo. It's located between Broadway, the intersection of Broadway, Prince, and Crosby, with the main focus being on the Broadway side. The building was built in 1884. It's actually not a cast iron building, but it is a brick and stone built by Thomas Stent, who also, his claim to fame is probably the Astor Public Theater, if you guys that. But he's also worked on a few buildings, 523 Broadway and 32. These are a few text photos. The first that you're looking on the left is looking south on Broadway. And the second is looking north on Broadway, and it's the right-hand side. As you can see, the building was originally constructed as commercial storefront for the lower levels and partially at the upper levels with the advertising sign running across the top band in both photos on the second level. In 1980, you'll also see that on the right-hand side, that's the black and white photo. It has commercial storefronts on the bottom and also offices on the second floor, as well as you will not see this one because there's a bridge up here, but this is the color photo of the space. This is an existing view from Prince Street, from Prince and Crosby, looking at the back of the building. It's a primarily brick building with features at the base and the stone lintels. And this is the existing view of 560 from the main thoroughfare, which would be viewed from Broadway, as well as a view of the existing storefront that currently inhabits the corner of Converse, the Converse store with its flag. Here we have the Broadway elevations, the existing 560 Broadway elevation and the proposed elevation. There are three main components that on this elevation that we're looking to come into the meeting board here today. The first of which is the flag and flagpole, which we situated at the corner of the police point. And you'll see that in the following. The second component would be awnings, retractable awnings that would be mounted as a signage component as well as to hide any mechanical work that we're proposing on exterior, that will impact the exterior facade. And the third component would be signage at the base of the building as well as the stone within the stone band, and would anchor the site as a component. This is the Prince Street elevation. This is the lower half portion is facing at Broadway. And then the other hand is Crosby Street. So as you can see, we have our flag. The building acts almost as, the corner acts as the anchor point of the building because it has the brick piers and stone that really define that commercial feel for that space because it faces Broadway and it's at an intersection of Broadway. We're proposing, we looked at the existing Converse flag in detail and we wanted to install a flag that would be installed without damaging historic fabric. So our anchors would be anchored into brick mortar joints. Stone would be carefully anchored into the sill that is existing. So, and for louvers, in regards to louvers, on the first image is looking south on Prince Street. We're as part of the renovation, Aritzia is taking over the cellar, the first floor, the basement. So there are some modifications that we are required to make, but we're trying to minimize the impact of obviously introducing louvers into a space and keeping the historic fabric as much as visually appealing as possible. So the first one, we're just taking the louvers and moving them over 2 windows. The second one, which is the prominent facade, the Broadway Street facade, we noticed that right above the flag, there's 2 louvers and they're taking up an entire sash. What we are proposing is removing those and putting in very nominal louvers. And what would happen is that the awnings that we'll get to in the next slide would allow us to basically cover it, and it would be something that would not be eyesore on the Broadway facade. And lastly, on the Crosby Street side, we're basically removing the louvers and relocating them 2 windows out. We have a few section details of the awning and window. Liam, can you zoom in a little bit on these, please? We're proposing retractable awnings, awning systems that would tie into the window frames and the storefront windows. We understand that, you know, it is a sensitive project, this is sensitive, and we don't want to anchor into any historic fabric unless necessary. These awnings would be retractable from the interior, and we would that would create a uniform assembly. So the one on the left is the at a window detail, and the one on the right is at the storefront on the level. And lastly, we want to talk about signage above the doors and signage at the base of the building. We're proposing a pin-mounted halo sign. It would be about 1 foot high to fit within the existing stone band, 5 feet wide. And we would make nominal incisions into the surgical incisions into the stonework to allow for electric power. This sign would not be lit from the face, it would be backlit, so it would create a halo effect on the signage. And then at the base of the building, there are 2 components. One would be the storefront vinyl, which would be on the Prince Street side, which is not that anchor point. These would be decals and a staff level approval item that would be mounted directly to the glass. However, on the Broadway Street side, we wanted something that would kind of be more visually appealing. And we are proposing a 1/4 inch CNC brass lettering that's mounted directly to the glass. Again, this would not disturb the glass in any way when they would just peel off once. This is a proposed rendering of the signage and awnings. And then next slide, or can you go back? Sorry. As you can see, our flagpole, and you would see all the signage that also inhabits the Broadway Street as it is a thoroughfare. What the awnings, the flagpole and signage do is really anchor the corner as a piece of that threshold storefront. We have the existing exterior and the proposed exterior. And as you can see, we have William, can you point out the signage that would sit right above the storefront and basically blend very well. We also have some work on the back. We're replacing the two doors at staff level. Can you point to that? Yes. Those two doors we're replacing in kind. And we're doing minor window repairs on the back of it. Can you zoom in on this a little bit, please? This is the existing elevation facing Prince Street. And then if you go down, so on the left-hand side at the back of the building, we have some translucent film. Well, obviously, Aritzia is a clothing store. They have fitting rooms. We work with them to minimize any impact they have on the exterior. However, there are 2 mechanical rooms and 2 fitting rooms that will require some translucent film. There's the decals that we pointed. And then those are the 2 louvers that we spoke about previously. There was 1 full louver, and then now we're going to 2 nominal louvers, keeping the existing window sash in place. So we would keep as much historic fabric as possible.
Go back to the screen doors or whatever's over there.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
So we would put so the 2 on the left are mechanical rooms. So we're putting a translucent film on top so you can't see into it. And the 2 on the right are for fitting room purpose. So we have 2 fitting rooms that are adjacent here. We're going to also put a wall that's within 12 inches of the fitting room. And then also put a translucent film that would allow us to basically create a privacy. But we're not disturbing the historic windows or masonry wall in any way.
The hatching is just graphic.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is that? That would be, it's a graphic annotation. We have fitting rooms behind those and they would be building a wall 12 inches deep from the masonry back. 12 inches back from the face of the sill. It can go to the right. Yeah. Can you zoom in on the corner? Yep. As the anchor point for the corner of Aritzia, we work with them to kind of tone down the amount of Aritzia signage they want to put on there. We want to minimize.
This is the tone down.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they wanted a lot more on this thing. So we requested that they kind of tone down the amount of their branding that they've liked to put. And we've arrived at, the flag, 2 awnings on this side, 4 awnings on this side, and keeping the middle clear as well as the letter on the back. Can you go to this?
So 2 and then nothing.
Nothing in the middle, but the corner is we are proposing to put a corner. This is the existing elevation. Dean and DeLuca used to take that corner, but Aritzia is also taking the upper portion. Next slide. So we're proposing the awnings that would go, zoom in on the awnings here. So up here, they're covered. Those would be the 2 louvers that we spoke about previously that were going to be hidden behind. Go to the right. Oh, no, those are the whited skirts.
Oh, okay.
Decals are only at the base of the building. There's nothing on the windows. Yeah, decals will only be at the base. These are just on the skirts, and these are retractable awnings. And these retractable awnings would conceal any mechanical louvers that we're proposing to integrate this. On the existing back. Crosby. On the Crosby Street side, the 1st and 2nd floors Again, not that much work, just miscellaneous window repairs and or store kind. And there's our, and one window will require a translucent film. Again, we've tried to minimize as much impact to the exterior of the building, but this is a lot of the mechanical systems are going to be at the rear of the building as to not impact the main thoroughfare Broadway Street facade.
And what's going, just
Yeah.
stay on that,
Stay
zoom
on
in
that.
on that. I don't know what's going on there.
So we have 4 nominal louvers, smaller louvers that we're trying not to take an entire sash.
Storefront.
At the storefront? No, zoom out that. Oh, they have opaque film currently on the windows in the rear of the building because it's exit. We're leaving those in place and then go to the canopy. To the right. We have opaque film on the windows. They have installed opaque film on the windows and doors that we're leaving in place. All the brick, concrete, and work we're not touching, and the existing metal canopy is going to remain, as well as all the second floor windows are going to be remaining in place. And I guess the last part of this is the windows. On the first and second floors, they would, as flip back to the rendering, please.
Yeah.
They would like to paint them a darker black color at the first and second floors and retain the existing window color beyond the second floor, because at the second floor, it almost acts as a base. The first and second floors act as base. The tower is will remain undisturbed, and it would help anchor the space as a commercial storefront with continuity. And thank you, and that's our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I'm going to ask you
Yes.
to repeat what the plan is for painting because I didn't quite
Okay.
get
The painting, we would paint the first and second floors.
Yes.
And all the window, and we will leave the existing above the second floor in place. We would like to paint it as a black color. We understand that on the second floor in cell, but we believe, in my opinion, because the first and second floors act as the base of the building. So they are, as you can see from the third floor up, it's very uniform. It's like a tower. So the commercial is really the first and second floors, and that's what really anchors it as a commercial storefront. And we will leave the original color in place on the upper floors. If you flip to this old photos. So as you can see, currently you have a dark black color at the first floor. We're proposing that color also be on the second floor as well. It's more,
First floors are what color?
and the upper floors are in maroon umber. I know that one is near there, but
I'm sorry, could I ask a clarifying question? So are you saying that what is on slide 18 is not actually what you're proposing, or in terms of the paint?
no, what we're proposing on slide 18 is we're proposing the black color, which is reflected in the render.
Which is in the, so it's exactly as it is on
Correct. Yeah.
the renderings. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody from the committee have any questions?
I don't know, to me, there's a celebration of this name that is probably not necessary. It's like for people with short attention spans, like you can't remember from one step to the next. So I would say, it's the awnings, even though I love awnings, they're just so many of them, and yet it's not all everywhere. So it sort of loses that completeness, if you will. So So I have a few, those are my issues, I guess.
Yeah, I totally share. It's very blingy. There's a lot of bling on this, in this proposal. And while I understand from your client's point of view why that's desirable, my concern is that the aggregate effect of all of that bling detracts from the harmony of the building as a whole, particularly on the Broadway facade. So that what is perhaps desirable for your client, which is to stand out, it is really against the harmony of this very handsome building. Yeah. So I don't know if, you know, you said you actually talked to your client about doing a bit less, and this is the result. But, you know, we'll discuss this in our executive session, but I will say that it does seem excessive, and, Aritzia 40 times, Aritzia 20 times is just as effective.
Well, and especially if you do something that's maybe a little more subliminal, which is see a white awning, let's say you get that all through. And you know it's Aritzia because they have, and the sign is down on the glass and you're done, understand. It's better, it's more subliminal.
I think, read you loud and clear, I think it's a little aggressive for what they're proposing, but we will go back and kind of tinker with the amount of signage on the awnings in particular, and kind of tone that down so that it's something that's more just a visual cue from the Broadway side as opposed to Aritzia.
Even as you're speaking, it occurs to me that you introduced this by calling it the Dean and DeLuca building, right? Which is, of course, how we all know it. Well, how much signage was there? And yet all these years later, we're still thinking of it as the Dean and DeLuca building with minimal signage,
And it's not a blingy building. It's a beautiful building, but it's substantial. It's masonry. It's not cast iron and emerald. It's like solid sort of.
I mean, it reminds me of like something like a show field or something would have done on Lafayette, of like wanting to be this big.
Lucia,
Present.
that did.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, because it's every one of those awnings on the top that has a Aritzia, right? On the second floor, right? Right, okay,
One,
right,
two.
okay. It just the name, it looks like.
Like you can't remember from one minute to the next.
Also,
It is Broadway.
Well, so don't underestimate your customers. Or I'm not a customer, I guess I should say.
I mean, I don't know where the committee's gonna land on the awnings on the second floor, but I would think it would be enough with the visual of that tying in and knowing that that's clearly Aritzia, but again, I have to think about.
Yeah,
the second floor awnings is also a lot.
business
I think
committee
that's a
on that.
fair,
But one other thing
yes.
that, there's a gorgeous symmetry to this building, and between the awnings and the louvers and some awnings in some places, and it starts being very jumpy visually in a building which has where the architecture itself has a very steady rhythm. And so this is a little staccato.
I guess my response, that's a very good response. I don't know. It's a valid opinion. Would it be something like a knob almost, like that would anchor that corner? Because I've been speaking about the corner to corner to corner is that between those brick piers, and obviously we have the other storefront that's adjacent to it. Maybe that's something we could look at.
What's the problem with the corner?
It's
a nice
the
corner.
Exactly. It's
Just the way it is, but that's. too
but it maybe,
radical.
I see your point about having the symmetry, and having the symmetry maybe on the Broadway side, not having and kind of kind of taking another look at kind of where the awnings.
I mean, and I understand saying like, oh, Converse has a flag. Here's a flag here, but the Converse is because it's flat against, the facade there, the sign, their sign, but here you're on a corner, you're on the prominent, you've got the two sides with the retail really big, and it almost just dilutes the beauty of that vocabulary there by adding in this extra flag. Or not extra, but adding in this flag to this beautiful corner. I don't know, it seems excessive. And then to be clear, on page 18, like I'm just gonna ask the really simple question of like, it's washed out on the right side of on page 18.
Yep.
So why is the stone different in the proposed and then it's on my page 18 where it's got the two, like why is that one? I mean, is it being cleaned up or is it?
We're gonna power wash.
Okay, so, okay,
It is a whiter stone.
okay. Got it.
And it's like,
I see that now. Okay, got it. I see it now. Thank you.
Well, I would just comment that when I was there today, at least in photographs, you can't tell the difference between the first floor color frame windows and the upper floors. So I don't see that would, it seems like it's a unifying element to have two floors of Aritzia that be the same color. And I think that the louvers are one of those evils that are necessity in these commercial buildings. And you're simply relocating and get the impression that they're being reduced in size somewhat. And so that's a good thing. So certainly can't find any fault with that aspect of it. And just the cleaning up and fixing up and repairing windows and doors and so forth, it's all good. But the awnings, especially on prints, that's right over the stairs, and that's not like people ducking in on a sidewalk to get out of the rain. You're putting them in danger of rain and ice and all the rest under those awnings. So I could not support that at all. And I think that.
And if they're retracted, then you have like signage. It'll be run on.
Yeah, the awnings don't seem to fit the character of the architecture. And so I'm having trouble with that. So.
We'll talk more during the business about that. Is there Anita, Valerie, Brian, anything else? Okay. Eugene, I see that Albert and Ryder both have raised hands.
Yes, I think Albert raised his hand. Albert, you are muted.
I am now unmuted.
You are now unmuted.
you're good.
We can hear you.
One tiny question. On one slide, I do not have the number. You refer to an exterior cafe. Now, is there an exterior cafe somewhere? Is
Center Bay on the Broadway side, you call it the cafe.
this part of
Slide 13 on the louver change, it says cafe. Or maybe it's
louvers? Yeah, it was about louvers.
right.
It's like there's.
I just saw it here. It could
So
be-
there is a permanent cafe there.
Correct.
Yes,
On the inside, yes. Yeah.
on the inside.
inside.
Yeah.
Interior.
Interior.
Okay. I think everyone has really stated. Could you go back, please, to slide 18?
Yep.
I think that's the one with the left and the right. The comparison is exactly what we're talking about. I don't know if the word overkill is ever used by the LPC, but that's a word that I would like to use. And thank you for your presentation.
Thanks, Albert. Ryder.
Hi,
Hi, you made it.
I'm here. I wonder if the applicants have a photo showing the Dean and DeLuca setup or can pull one up, because I think that's a relevant comparison. And my recollection, which I was able to confirm with the Google image search, is that Dean and DeLuca did have awnings with their name on it, 4 on the Broadway side and 3 on the Prince side, where these are, and also had, you know, decals with the name in every window. So I think if you're able to show that, it might assuage some of the concerns of the committee, to see that actually, you know, to show the alignment with the Dean and DeLuca setup. But I wonder if you have that or want to pull it up for the committee now.
Yeah.
Make sure to do when we share out the Google.
Well, there's none on the second floor at all,
Right.
Because Dean and DeLuca.
and it's not around the corner.
No, it is around the
It's around
corner.
the
Yeah,
I saw it.
but it isn't in the sign band.
If you did that, then you could,
I mean, Dean and DeLuca, thank you for pointing that out, Ryder and Valerie also.
Sure.
Yeah,
But I was
Um,
wondering too.
but you know, the aggregate is still much less with this than with the proposal that's before us now. If there isn't something in the sign band, there aren't as many, because Dean and DeLuca only understood that it's only because Dean and DeLuca had that property, but the impact on the visual of the building is greatly reduced when it's these 4 and 3 on the other side than what is being proposed. And without the sign band and without the flag, I think it, you know, it's quieter.
well, you should
Thank
use it in your presentation. That's a good thing.
Eugene, is there anybody else? Yeah, please, Pete Davis,
My turn?
go ahead. I read your letter earlier.
Great. Yeah, while we've got this up, first of all, I've lived on this block for 45 years, well before Dean and DeLuca came in the picture. When it still was a wholesale building. Everybody wants to say, oh, it was commercial for, you know, it was a wholesale building before Dean and DeLuca. The coloration here. Are you painting the sign band a lighter color?
No, we're just gonna.
Okay, so it's actually going to remain the ochre color and not this white.
Correct.
Okay. The awning color is
White.
white
Yes.
on grimy Broadway. Interesting, because they'll be gray and nasty within 6 months.
That's it.
Uh,
Understood, that's a.
I've lived there
conversation.
45 years, believe me. Whether or not Dean and DeLuca had awnings along Prince, the fact that they do drip right into the subway stair and shed snow right into the subway stair, doesn't matter if they have the name Aritzia or Dean and DeLuca, they shed onto people trying to get onto public transportation and get out of public. It's the busiest corner on Broadway and so. Now I have a lot of issues with this. I've sent the committee, this, I'll give you a copy of what I sent. Also a neighbor, Susan Shoemaker, did you get that from her?
Yes, thank you.
Architect who lives on Broadway, who sent this. Perhaps others sent something in. I just also want to point out that, can you hear me on the Zoom?
Yes, perfectly well.
Through the microphone.
Yep.
No, this building in 2013 submitted an application for a store designed by Thomas Fenn and built in 1884. Application to alter facades, replace infill, install canopy, flagpoles, signage. Albert earlier used the word overkill. That's what the committee said in 2013. Said it was overkill. And they also said that all the signage clutters the facade and detracts from the building and the district. So that's what was sent to Landmarks in 2013. The plans for, if you go back to that image of the Dean and DeLuca and zoom out. Hey, the Converse flag, I don't know what year is that?
2019.
2019. So that was just after that flag went in. The flag was approved at staff level under a certificate of no effect. And sometime after whatever they allowed, the more minimal thing they allowed in 2013, which really surprised me. It's like, wow, staff approved a flag. That was odd. I object to the flag at the corner. I'm also representing Broadway Residents Coalition, which is a good number of people that have lived on that area for a while. We've really, excuse me, worked on minimizing the addition of new flags. I'm assuming you're moving here, you're leaving 524 Broadway and moving to, so there you have two flags. So you want to bring one of your flags and stick it on this building, which, if you look at this building, it is symmetrical. Even with the flag, they put the flag dead center for Converse. One thing you'll do by putting Aritzia in the sign band is, you'll balance out that second Converse side on the sign on the south end. But adding a flag on the corner, tips the building, as will the visual weight of a line of awnings on the second floor. Without, I'm not saying teleconference put awnings on the first floor, but the visual weight moves to that north side of the building. So also your presentation and different images show different places where Aritzia is that doesn't all line up. How many Aritzias are being proposed? Because I counted in one set of your images 22, in another set of your images I counted 30.
On the Prince Street side, there's 4 on that corner.
So there's 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the corner.
In the corner.
8, 9, 10. Wait, we're not to the corner.
Oh, yeah, 11, 12. Oh, it's all 11, 12.
Okay, 8, 9, 10.
11, 12.
11, 12, 13, 14.
11, 12.
11, 12. Oh, okay. 11, 12. Okay, so 12 on the Prince Street side. 9 on the Crosby Street side?
Not on the Crosby side.
And on the Broadway side?
2, 4, 6, 8, 11.
11 plus the flag.
Plus the flag in. Plus 12.
So what's that total? 22? Okay, somewhere in the presentation, it should have a number. And it should say X number on awnings, just so the Landmarks has something to quantify. Because right now, you're just kind of saying Aritzia. I mean, I pray that the committee will urge the commissioners to reduce, minimize these numbers, and therefore quantifying how many they're proposing and where they're proposing them. So you can be really specific if you choose to ask them to minimize, which I'm urging you to do.
Okay, thanks, Pete.
That if it's done in just, if you could do a few less, where does that really leave the commission? The commissioners have railed for 10 years. Oh, it's so sad that Broadway's become this shopping mall. Yet they rarely take the responsible step of pulling that visual clutter down in a way that celebrates the buildings, and instead, you know, rightly so, the retail people, I think the Aritzia on the sign band lets people know Aritzia is there. And thank God it's a halo lit and it's not some other thing.
We hear you, Pete. Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I know I've gone on along, but this is a huge application. So anyway, what I've submitted to you, I hope you consider it, and I will sit down unless there are any questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pete. Anybody else, Eugene? Anybody from the public?
I do not see any hands raised.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your commentary.
Detail of your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your commentary. We'll go back and.
Now I heard what you said. I didn't realize, okay.
All right, now we'll move to 75 Varick Street, which is an individual landmark. The application is to install glass railings and to modify existing window openings to install doors on a terrace.
Are we having human?
Are they on the line? Please raise your hand if
The other.
Oh, Albert, you've got your hand raised. Is that a leftover hand?
Oh, yes, it is. I'm
I
sorry.
had a feeling. Okay,
I don't
thanks.
see it, so I can't remove it.
All right. And our 75 Varick Street remote applicants are in the process of being transformed into panelists. So please be patient and we'll be with you in a moment. Thank you.
I remember that project from years ago. Same building.
Broadway?
This one that come in Varick. It didn't go.
Hi, everyone. I believe we're all here.
Great.
I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'm Sarah Ripple with Higgins Quaisbarth and Partners. We're the preservation consultants on this project. I also have Tom Minieri from Huntsman Architectural Group with me, as well as John Schoback from Hines. And I believe John is going to start us off with just a brief introduction while I get my screen up and shared.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. On behalf of ownership, we're excited to present an opportunity to activate an approximate 3,500 square foot setback on the 8th floor of 75 Varick. 75 Varick is a 1.1 million square foot commercial office building with retail on the ground floor. And on the business side, we are seeing a lot of interest for tenants with private dedicated outdoor space. So I will turn it over to our very talented architecture team and landmark consultants, Sarah and Tom. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, John. All right, so this is 75 Varick Street, the Holland Plaza building, now called 1 Hudson Square. As John mentioned, it's an individual landmark, a designated individual landmark. It's located here in the bottom right map, you see in red, on an irregularly shaped lot facing the Holland Tunnel entrance. Is constructed in 1930 by a significant garment manufacturer, but interestingly was initially occupied by a number of firms in the printing and related trades. And as mentioned, the area of work that we'll be looking at tonight is this 8th floor terrace setback on the North Watt Street elevation overlooking that tunnel entrance. The proposal is to activate this terrace as usable outdoor space, including new doors and a glass safety rail. So looking at these historic photos, talking a little bit about the background of the building, it was designed by Eli Jacques Kahn in a modern functional architectural vocabulary that, as you can see, emphasizes the structural grid without a lot of applied ornament. It's characterized by the strong vertical piers, textured horizontal spandrels and steel windows, and this Watt Street elevation, which you see in both images in 1935 on the left and 1980 on the right, is also characterized by a series of setbacks and at the ground floor, vehicular loading bays. So those two different things kind of set this facade apart from the other three elevations and kind of causes this elevation to serve as the building's secondary or back of house elevation. You can see that the historic windows had a central pivot sash for fresh air, and historic documentation, of course, over the decades has consistently shown it with that kind of flutter of windows, some open, some closed, creating a very varied texture at the windows. And one thing to note while we look at the historic images, originally in the 30s and then even until at least the 80s, the parapets at each of these setbacks were articulated only with a simple terracotta coping, which has changed over time. We'll see that here. So some overall views looking east and west in the top row and some details in the bottom row. Of course, we see the beige brick facade and terracotta block. The historic windows have all been replaced with aluminum double hung windows with a faux patina finish. All of these windows were replaced prior to designation in 2013. So it's a pretty consistent treatment across the entire building, although non-historic. And then of course, at the parapet, a white painted pipe railing has been inserted into the top of that terracotta coping. You can see that just kind of inserted straight to the top. So looking at the plan of the 8th floor, of course, as we mentioned, the area of work is at this 8th floor terrace at the north elevation. At the interior, you're seeing still a large open floor plate consistent with those historic uses. And currently, the terrace is a span of unusable area. There are no doors, only double hung windows per those replacement aluminum windows. So the proposed work is the removal of the window system from just 2 bays, an installation of new doors, new glass railings that are integrated into very low planters, and then new roofing and pavers. So seeing this in elevation, in the top elevation, the pipe railing that you see here will be removed and the terracotta coping will be repaired. This will return that parapet to its historic condition. In the middle elevation, we're using non-reflected glass for the guardrail to minimize its perception from the ground. And then in the bottom elevation, it's cut behind that railing line to show the facade a little more clearly. So you can see how the door systems are designed to match the mullion spacing and to be kind of a very discrete insertion within that original, or not original, but the existing window kind of rhythm. So to meet life safety and code requirements, we'll have exit signs and some very simple sconces installed at the facade. Taking a look in section, we see how that sill will be dropped from the existing on the left to the proposed on the right in order to allow for entry at the new paver level. We'll see in the visibility studies in a little bit that only the top mullion of the existing windows is visible from the street. So we've ensured that that horizontal mullion will be maintained to match that alignment of the surrounding windows and to minimize that difference when seen from the street. As mentioned, new pavers and planters, which were designed to meet staff rules. and a glass railing set into the new planter. So installation of this element will not have a physical impact on the historic building. The glass railing is significantly set back, almost a little over 2 feet from the face of the building. And as mentioned, we'll be using non-reflective glass with a simple metal cap, matching what was previously approved for the 17th floor terrace. We have a picture of that in the upper right. We can see here in the plan, we have an enlarged elevation above and plan below. In the plan, the dimensions and spacing of the window columns match from the windows on the left and the doors on the right. The horizontal mullion, of course, that we mentioned is visible from grade, will align with that top horizontal mullion in the windows. And again, the doors already kind of fitting within that defined module of the existing mullions. So showing window and door mullion details. Again, the outside framing is very close to the existing on top, proposed on bottom. The dimensions grow slightly at the jamb and at the meeting style, which is needed for the operation of the door and structural loads. And then looking at this in the vertical sections, below the sill is approximately 15 inches of masonry that will be removed in order to drop the sill down to the paver level. And again, similar to the horizontal section, the dimension at the header of the door grows slightly by comparison to the windows, again, just to allow for operation. But stepping back and looking at it within the context of the full elevation, it's a huge facade where the important characteristics are the regular masonry piers and spandrels and the consistency of those large window openings. This is, of course, a bird's eye view. It's not a real perspective view from anywhere on the ground, but shows how the overall reading of the elevation and the regularity of the grid is not disturbed by these pretty minimal and discrete changes. Just 2 window openings in the very large field. So looking at the 8th floor terrace, from the terrace level, we have the existing view, similar existing view in the top right. In terms of material and finish, the new door system will match the existing windows in terms of material and finish. It'll have that same kind of patina look. For context, the building received approval from Landmarks for installation of glass railings and some other non-visible changes at the 17th floor in 2018. We have pages from the public hearing presentation below here for reference, and then actually a photo of the railings as installed above here. So the proposal is to match the railing detail that was previously approved so as to provide consistency across the building. And this was found to be appropriate given the kind of simple detailing and discrete presence against the background of the building. Similarly, simple glass railings have been found appropriate other individual landmarks as part of proposals to activate outdoor space, which I know we've seen a lot of, especially in the post-COVID era when it's especially important for tenancy to provide some access to outdoor space, including at 75 Rockefeller Plaza, 720 West End Avenue, Pier A, and the Starrett Lehigh building, all designed and found to be appropriate given the kind of visual, unobtrusive character that they recede from view, given the transparency, that no major architectural details would be obscured, very similar to the proposal that we're reviewing here. As mentioned, we installed a mock-up for the railing to confirm the level of visibility for landmarks, and we also taped out the mullions to determine just how much of the window was visible. So using this mock-up again, we confirmed that, apologies, I skipped ahead, that only the uppermost horizontal mullion is visible from grade. The visibility ends somewhere within this second row of windows. So I'll walk you around. We have quite a few points of visibility given the location of the entrance to the Holland Tunnel. So we'll walk around Varick, Dominic, Hudson, and Broome Street. And please note that the real view is on the left. And we note the approximate distance in the caption below. And the zoomed view on the lower right is very zoomed in and meant to help provide clarity on what you're looking for, while the larger photo is truly what you see on the street. So from down the block at about 240 feet, we're catching a little bit of that glass railing, perhaps barely perceptible given the angle that you're looking at. From about a block away, you might be able to start to see some of that window framing. The glass railing, of course, would be seen against the large windows and glazing beyond. This is from a block and a half away. Again, from quite a distance, almost 500 feet. And again, from a little further away at around 600 feet, catching a wider span of that terrace, but again, from quite a distance that the actual changes would be hard to perceive. From behind the entrance to the Holland Tunnel, and then coming around the other side on Hudson Street. And then in front from Broome Street, just right by the entrance to the Holland Tunnel. I'm not sure many people actually even walk here, but providing this for clarity to understand what you're seeing from right in front of the building. And then from the park across the street as well. So that's it. You know, all in all, these are very discrete, kind of reasonable changes to make this outdoor space accessible and usable. And that when seen within the context of the larger elevation will be difficult to perceive and will not diminish your reading of the building or the historic characteristics that make it such a special building. And with that, we're happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you in particular for such extensive visual information regarding visibility and mock-ups.
Happy to provide it.
Valerie.
What's the motivation for this change? Is it for a current tenant, or is it to attract a new tenant?
This is to attract a new tenant. So there's significant vacancy at the building that we've seen, you know, tenants in the market really latch on and focus their search on having a dedicated private outdoor space as an accessory to office use.
Thank you.
Right, and just to reiterate, currently the roof right here is entirely inaccessible, given that they're all window openings. There are no door openings currently onto the space, so you have to climb out of the window and over the sill to get out into that area.
Mm-hmm.
Anita.
Yeah, I have no problems with the doors, and I understand, you know, it's working well with what you have. So my question, well, first of all, is this what you would call a green roof? Not really. Did you address that at all or think about that? In other words, is the, you know, with the green roof,
are you talking about the building code requirements for green roofing? For like a sod roofing?
Planters. So it really depends on how it's deep. There's a lot that goes into those seemingly wild natural roof gardens. The white involved, and then you're also capturing the moisture and, you know, all of that stuff. That might be a good thing to do in a place like that, just as a role model.
Yes, I think if I understand what you're suggesting, part of the proposal is redoing the roofing underneath. And as mentioned, there'll be a new pedestal and paver system going in. So all of that will, the drainage and whatnot that you're referring to will be accounted for.
I don't think that's quite what you were asking, is it?
But it is what it is.
Okay.
Answer. What's between the planter and the parapet? Is that gonna become a big maintenance problem, or is that the drainage? What's going on there? I know you stepped it back like 18 inches.
Right, there's a foot between the backside of the parapet and the planter. And Tom, perhaps you can speak to this better. I'm sorry. I just want
Sure.
to, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's for facade inspection access so that the building can mount C hooks to the parapet rather than scaffolding the building.
So it will be accessible. It will need to be accessible.
All right, Brian, about.
You have a floor plan showing the roof and the layout of the planters? Can you blow up the area we're talking about? I can't really see what I'm looking at. Are those little? So you have a little thin strip of planter and then you have like almost looks like a column?
Right.
That's right.
There's a little bump out every now and then.
Well, it'd be nice to use that roof. Clearly, it's quite impressive. And it's a very beautiful and impressive building with unusual detailing. So maybe those squares go well because the building has these little squares everywhere.
And the planters and the pavers and all of that are entirely non-visible from the street. They're all below the height of the parapet. So it's not even something that you would see from grade.
I do have one question, which may or may not be relevant, but I know that birds and glass are not a happy combination in many cases. And since you are on the 8th floor, I don't know enough about that to know if the non-reflective quality that you're proposing on the glass is sufficient to save bird lives. What is your knowledge of this?
I can answer. I think between the top of the existing parapet to the top of the glass is, we have the section detail, it's less than 2 feet maybe. So I think it's maybe 2 foot.
2'1".
2'1". Okay, so the span of that glass, and the issue with reflectivity and birds is typically the larger curtain wall systems. And this is the same detail that was done upstairs on the 17th floor, and I'm unaware of any bird issues with the building, and maybe John can weigh in on that too.
Yeah, not to my knowledge, since we've installed this, we haven't had issues.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that question. I know that there are efforts on the New York State level to address this too. So anyway, thank you. Eugene, does anybody else from the committee have a raised hand? I don't see anybody.
I do not see any other raised hands
Okay,
from the
how about
committee
the
or the
public?
public.
Nobody from the public? Nobody? All right, very good. Thank you. Thank you for your very detailed and extremely discreet presentation.
Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Shall we enter the business session?
Yeah.
Do we want to start with Varick Street since the applicants are still here?
Yeah, it's an easy one too.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll ease into it. That's an easy one, right? I mean, does anybody find anything even remotely objectionable here? No. All right, so we all unanimously vote to recommendation of this, yeah? Okay, very good. All right, so now let's go to 17 Barrow Street, which is that proposed gate and additional security railing. We kind of have two issues here. One is sort of what a position regarding those things in general, and the other is this particular proposal. I think that there is enough practice now of the gate and railings and these kind of security issues that I know that years ago, you know, it felt like it was a very privatization kind of thing to do. But given how the street life has really evolved in the past several years, I just think, you know, I know that the applicant is not exaggerating. I live nearby myself. No need to go into the gruesome details, but I think, you know, I don't feel that this is a situation where people are exploiting some minimal thing in order to appropriate more space. These things really are,
It's not a precious street escape of
right.
stoop after stoop after stoop.
Right.
And maybe that too will come, but right now, that's, I think, the motivation of that it's sort of open and part of the streetscape. Here, it's a very odd street. I mean, we really do know these streets well. And in a way, I don't even think I would object to a little gate, you know, but to me, the design is so imbalanced, so minimal, and really, you know, it's okay if you fall off the landing, but heaven forbid you should step up a step. You know, it's imbalanced. The design, there is really no design, I would say.
Right. I mean, it does look like just
no
somebody, you know, picked a page out of a catalog of existing something and then
that reinforcing the corner, the newel post, making it, I mean, maybe it's rock solid, but usually there's a reason why we have newel posts. We sort of hold it all together. And if they were to keep the railing, which has been there a long time and could be no more minimal, then maybe the gate needs to be more minimal. Maybe it's just you know, you don't need to do a lot to keep people off the step.
Right.
People used to just hang a chain. And you know, so yeah, they have to match each other, if anything, at a minimal, for my opinion. And I wouldn't mind, you know, just making it into something nicer all around. Just because it's been there doesn't mean that it's good.
You know,
right.
so it's certainly a struggle when we don't get to see this kind of gating of the stoops, because the stoop characteristic historically is very much an open stair. And that's what we're trying to preserve in the village. In this case, we do have examples, they were shown in the presentation, of other stoops that have gotten gates. And they're always for a very particular reason, a compelling reason, I would say. One was a parsonage. Another one was trying to think of some other special condition that swayed the choice there. So this street does not have any other stoops. It stands by itself. And I'm surprised with the amount of commercial activity, the bars and restaurants on both sides, that there's not more control of what goes on during the night. But then again, the bars do close at some hour, and then there's still more nighttime to go. So my conclusion or my preference would be that if we were to allow there to be some additional ironwork to provide security, I would say that it should be in the character of the original building and an original type of stoop. We don't have, unfortunately, the documentation of what that looked like, but we know it wasn't this plain.
We have a lot, luckily, we have a lot of examples of this exact era.
I mean, that is certainly retrievable and existing.
Maybe not this building, but something very similar.
Yeah, is there Albert and Zachary? Albert, why don't you go next, followed by Zachary?
Yeah, I came in at the end of this presentation, and I am just curious to know how the resolution might, what the resolution might say.
Well, Albert, let's see first of all, let's just sort of see what everybody else thinks, but the part that you missed of the discussion, there was a discussion between the committee and the applicants where we expressed our concern over the lack of connection between the proposed metalwork and the existing architecture, not only in the physical joining of the two, as Anita talked about newel posts, but in the visual components. I mean, it's clearly non-decorative. The proposal is clearly non-decorative iron work, and it calls for decorative iron work if we want to connect it to the building.
Exactly. I would call the presentation minimal, and therefore not. I have to use that word. No, appropriate.
Yeah.
Yes. They're applying for a certificate of appropriateness, and I don't believe this is appropriate.
The applicants seem very willing
Yeah.
to explore other ways of looking at this and to look for
There are many
inspiration in other places.
many examples. Yes,
I think that's what we're asking them. That's what I would like, and I think that's my sense that that's what the others in the room would like. And now it sounds like you too. And Zachary.
So I hear what everyone's saying. My only comment would be the railing that's there today, which clearly has been there quite some time. I doubt it's original, but clearly has been there a while, is extremely minimalist. And so the gate, in my opinion, does match the railing in that sense. Maybe not the exact style, bit for bit, but it's not as if we have a very fanciful decorative railing that exists today and they're putting a simple gate on the front. They're putting a simple gate on the front of a very simple railing. So, I mean, I feel like we are asking for a change from what is there today to be more decorative, which fine, we can ask for that. But I want to be clear that I don't think they are coming in and downgrading what is there today. They are matching, which is, if we want to object to that, fine, we can object to it. But I don't think that they are, I don't think they're operating in the spirit of we're taking something that's very decorative and we're putting something very simple on.
No, I think you're right about that. But I think that, please, everybody, tell me if you think this is not an accurate representation. But my sense is that we would like to ask for something that's kind of inspired by, we're not saying, okay, take something from Disneyland and plonk it onto the building, but, work a little harder to find some way to integrate. I think it's a creative design problem of integration of what this building is with what their desires are. And I think that minimal as the existing railing may be, the proposal still wasn't even coherent with that. So,
I agree. Yeah. I mean, if it were done in some kind of a
minimalist way. To me, it's not really minimalist, it's just a stock 4-inch on center, you know. It's not minimalist, it's just not anything unusual. But if it were designed with a little more thought, then I would be much more willing to approve it. And it could be just by simplifying that front gate. You don't need to hold out every creature. You're saying this is private, don't come up here. And maybe you brighten your lights, because that's really a good way to secure your property. But it's just very imbalanced. That the design is not even minimal, it's just imbalanced, in my opinion,
Well, it'd be more balanced if on the sides they were adding in some sort of maybe vertical element or something so that it holistic.
Yeah, but you know, like they said, it has been there, and they're on a tight budget. I appreciate that. But still, I think you have to either get somebody who has a more experience designing a gate that somehow relates to the side rails. Then I could go along with it, you know, but it has to have some thought, a little more thought and
So
design.
how does everybody, oh, Ryder, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, since I missed the first 15 minutes of this, so I actually don't feel prepared to vote. I'm going to abstain from this one, but I think it's helpful.
Are you on the committee now?
Yes.
Yes. That's why I'm here. And since I haven't been to a landmarks committee meeting since 2019, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to ask to be refreshed a little bit on the standard operating procedure for the approvals process. I think this is a good exemplar to ask this question. Like, is the standard that, the applicant has to clear some bar of non-discordance with historic aesthetics, and if it clears that bar of like, okay, it's not totally out of, it's consistent to some minimum standard, then we approve it? Or is it that, the applicant, we want them to be as great as possible in the aesthetics and, neighborhood and historical vocabulary? So it's not about clearing some baseline, it's about optimizing to our preferences. And I hope that's a clear differential, because it seems like for this gate, it's like, this seems to clear some minimal bar of it's consistent with what's there right now, but it's obviously not at the peak of aesthetic, design. So what is the standard that we are meant to apply? Clearing the bar of non-discordance, or optimizing with the aesthetics of the neighborhood and historic designs found there?
Great question. I mean, even I would say in this particular case, this doesn't really meet the standard, even what you were describing as a minimum standard of discordance, because by the time, it's one thing to have those simple rails, but by the time you've translated those, you've expanded that into this whole structure now around it, it's no longer simple. So this, I would say, does not even meet that standard of minimal discordance, because by very virtue of how much is being added, it becomes discordant. As to your conceptual question, I think it's an interesting question. I wish I had a spreadsheet kind of an answer for you.
I've never seen the bar. Show me when you find it, because there is no, this is something that just, there is aesthetic is part of our title. So that may be good enough in some conditions. And it's worth mentioning, because sometimes the applicant just doesn't know or didn't think of it. Oh God, that's a great idea. So I don't know that there's anything wrong about that. But if you are coming to a committee and a commission to review a proposal, I don't know, I think you have to have something worth proposing, just not any old shit, That's why we get together and spend our free time to look at this stuff, in the hopes that we can keep an eye on things and not let it just go to whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I think it's possible to give the feedback and say, here's our expert guidance that you might want to take into consideration. But if we're actually going to deny it, and make them have to spend more time and money, the question is, what is the standard that we're asking them to meet for that, to clear the bar of that denial? But I think it is kind of conceptual, and I will stop my.
Well, it's not math. There's no math involved. You can't add 2 checks here, and some things have a really big weight and don't cost anything to improve, by the way. A proportion or material, they're already spending. People spend a lot of money no matter what. So you can get something that you're really proud and stand up tall and go, this is what I want and this is why.
Also, Ryder, I think one other component, I mean, there are many factors here, but one is, we think about the district as a whole and, our community board, obviously, we're very lucky to have many different landmark districts. And I think we think with great specificity towards each of our unique landmarked districts. And I think we think with a sense of the aggregate and precedent. So if using this as an example, we said, yeah, great, put in this really ugly thing that looks like it came from, a guy who does, see windows on Utopia Parkway, then, we don't want to see that all over a historic district on a beautiful early 19th century building. And I think, what was proposed did have a look that was more appropriate, in suburbia, in Long Island or somewhere in Queens.
We have a mandate, and so we've been on my mind.
Forget it.
Yeah.
And a precedent as well. So I hope that helps a little to answer you a little bit.
I appreciate the indulgence. It's helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Could I just
Yes.
say one thing?
Please.
We do not approve or deny any application. We simply recommend approval or denial. That's all. Just
Right.
to make sure that is clear.
As long as we're talking in generalities, it's certainly interesting to note that just a few years ago, this building got defaced by someone, I think the tenant of the bar. That used to be a very ornate type of molded and sculpted lintel and so forth. And I believe it was defaced without any LPC approval. So this building has gone through.
Conscientious.
Yeah.
It fell down though, I will say, that arch, rather than, but without approval. So
All right, so how does everybody feel about recommending denial of this, the specifics of, not recommending not denying the concept, not recommending denial of the concept of a gate here, but recommending denial of this particular gate and system and requesting that the applicant return with a more, with a design that is more sensitive to the early 19th century building.
It's fine with me.
Yes.
I mean, it's amenable to. So.
Oh, go away.
Log me as an abstention, since I really I missed too much of it to feel able to vote.
Okay, Ryder, got it. Thank you. So with the exception of Ryder's abstention, is everybody in agreement on that way to proceed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. So we will move to 27 East 11th Street. That was that fourth floor rear facade, the kind of atelier window.
I mean, I thought it
It was fine. They know what they're doing. They put a lot of effort and time into it.
Yeah, I thought it was a really impressive presentation and really an improvement for what was there. And, you know, really respectful of the whole concept, the atelier in the village. So I don't think that there was any aspect of this proposal that was at all objectionable. It all seemed very sensitively done. I think the only thing for our discussion might be to think about certainly not as a denial and certainly recommend approval all the way, but do we want to include something saying that, you know, in the spirit of what they're doing, you know, we would urge them to perhaps reconsider the proportion of the skylight.
Yeah, sure.
Is everybody on? But it's still, it's
They
still
really want it,
approval.
and they're really trying, so it's almost there. If it were just exaggerated a little bit, it would look
Good.
more elegant.
Yeah. Is everybody good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, unanimous.
So let me just make a note so that as I draft this, I don't think, what was it we said? Okay.
Now he's an age.
So now the biggie. 560 Broadway. Have a big blingy one. 560 Broadway. Okay. Let's take. Well, I was going to say, let's take it piece by piece. One, you know, flag and flagpole, 2 awnings, 3 signage, and maybe 4 louvers. But it is a bit tricky when I think that the underlying issue here is perhaps not any one element, but instead the effect of all of the elements in combination as being somewhat excessive.
It's so busy. It's so busy. It's such a beautiful, solid, stately building. I mean, you know, awnings can come and go. They'll get dirty or tired and get removed. But there's so many of them. Maybe it'd be better to have, you know, one bigger one. I thought the Dean and DeLuca was really good to see that example, since we've all romanticized it in our heads. But there was something nice, and so forget the actual name, but something very nice and cozy about 4 little awnings, sort of creating a space rather than this galleria where the thing isn't shading anything. You know what I mean? It's for flash, but it doesn't create a space. It just is an opportunity for signage. So I think there's something that reads in the design that's what's going on, you know.
Zachary.
I would say, why don't we give them exactly what Dean and DeLuca had? Awnings, the window signage, which Dean had on every window. I used to go to the gym across the street from that building 4 times a week. I saw it every day, pretty much. And then not give them the
aggressive part.
yeah, and then not give them the flag or the big pin signs, the backlit pin signs, which is what Dean and DeLuca didn't have. So we're being consistent with what the previous tenant had, with what people remember, and I think people remember, and they may not have remembered the Dean stuff because it wasn't super obtrusive and it wasn't incredibly gaudy. So to me, I feel like that might be a fair compromise.
So, yeah, I think those are great thoughts. Thank you. So let's talk about let's get specific and say, what if we recommended denial of the flag and flagpole? And I think we've got many reasons that we can cite there. I think we all have concerns about the lack of symmetry and that it's a very steady rhythm to that building. And I think a lot of what we're talking about is the interruption to that rhythm. So what do people think about, say, recommending denial of the flag and flagpole? Let's talk about the awnings for a minute, and let's say recommending approval of the number of awnings that existed when it was Dean and DeLuca, which would be the 4 on Broadway and the 3 on Prince Street. I know we may have a discussion about the 3 on Prince Street for practical reasons, but denial of the awnings on the 2nd floor, which really contributes to the visual clutter of the whole experience. And to follow Zachary, your suggestion to say no to the backlight lit pin sign in the sign band. Yeah. And approval of the relocation of the louvers, which are, you know, practically driven, and certainly louvers are part of the vocabulary of buildings in Soho. So how's everybody feel about that?
Yes.
Nothing
I
on
like-
Prince, though. I think you should get rid of the ones on Prince, because they're causing a problem at this already problematic corner with the snow and the rain.
I
And
wanted to
you
just make it,
Go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Zachary.
I think he froze.
Oh, he's frozen.
very
He's
serious.
frozen in California. You can't freeze in California.
I was gonna say that the awnings are also sort of a thing that one is to keep the space cool, but it also designates a space, an activity of something, you know, and you wouldn't do that on the way down the stairs. So I think that we could maybe not have them there if need be.
I find myself torn about, I thought all of it was fine. I don't mind the flag. I don't mind any of it. But in the spirit of endorsing Zach's good compromise, I do think that the Prince Street side awnings are an asset, especially if you don't have the flag and you're walking down or up Broadway and you can't see the front of the awnings that are on the Broadway side. If you're, you know, it makes sense to see the name of, I guess if you're walking down Broadway is what's relevant. And I remember many times being sheltered from rain coming out of the Prince Street subway by the Dean and DeLuca awning. So I think they're an asset for commuters. So, you know, I would endorse Zach's compromise, but from the perspective of actually being okay with a broader set of what they're requesting.
But I think visually, if you get rid of the flag, if you get rid of the awnings on the 2nd floor, I mean, it visually is symmetrical at the corner. So if you keep them on the Prince side.
I agree, good point.
Instead of just kind of boxing.
And how many names are, I mean, is it on the awning and on the window and on the next awning? And I think that's too much.
What is that song? How do you solve a problem like Aritzia?
I missed some of the conversation, but it sounds like there's a kind of a mixed bag here of what we're recommending and what we're denying. That in my mind, I'm kind of going down the list of what I could be okay with.
Right.
I start with the halo signs. I'm fine with the 2 halo signs on the band. They balance the corner, they balance the Broadway side of the Converse signs. And that seems to be, they seem to be of a scale that is keeping with,
The 1 foot high, 5 feet.
And that's what the
wide.
sign ban is for, right?
Yeah.
Not being-
certainly, as I mentioned before, the window painting is in keeping. It seems like that would blend in with what's there already. The louvers are not objectionable, they're a necessity, and they're being minimized and carefully handled. I think that I would, with other, it's been talked about on the awnings, although it might be that under ideal conditions, the awning might shield some people coming out of the stairs, subway, but there's gaps between the awnings, doesn't cover the whole stair. I just see it as being too much and too little at the same time. It's not enough to cover the whole stair, and it's too much for what's happening, and it's dripping right on the stairs. So I feel very uncomfortable about recommending those awnings. So then finally, we get down to all of the other branding logos splashed everywhere. And I think that needs to be reduced. Certainly, the Dean and DeLuca example, they had them on each of the Broadway windows. I don't know about the Prince side, but those awnings and the window signs, decals seem appropriate for that front. So I think maybe 1 or 2 different places on the second floor, and maybe around on Prince, 1 or 2 should be suffice for people to know what's in there.
So Brian, you're saying, what you would support, are you saying that you don't think we should support the 3 awnings on the Prince Street side? Or how does everybody feel about approving them with an expression of our concern over the practical aspect of the impact on subway folks?
Yeah, and I wonder if there's some other agency that actually has some purview over that subway entrance.
Well, I wonder, that's why I think we should mention something, but since we're really talking about the visual aspects here, perhaps we can go ahead and recommend approval, but simultaneously express concern over the practical impact.
Did we like the Dean and DeLuca on the side there because they were green matching the subway? Is that?
And I didn't see that visual of the Prince Street side. Yeah. So, yeah, but just from the effect of what you could see on Broadway,
Smell.
it wasn't the obtrusiveness of the awning. Right, it seemed to blend in pretty well. So, yeah, I'll go along with that.
Are you comfortable with that? How about everybody else? Right, Zachary, you're back. Yay.
I'm back. Sorry, my internet, my Wi-Fi dropped, so I had to call in from my phone. Apologies.
Thank you for coming back.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think. Sorry, I was cut off, but when I was talking, I mean the awnings. Yes, there is the concern, but also, if the awnings aren't there, the rain and snow is just falling directly on people who are going to the subway. It's not as if the rain and snow are going away if the awnings aren't there. So I think it is a concern, but I actually personally could envision sometimes when it might be nice to have an awning over my head if I'm going to the subway that blocks most of the rain if I stand under it versus, if I don't have an umbrella. But I think to your suggested compromise is a good one, Susan. I appreciate it.
Okay, great. Good. Now let's get back to the signage for a moment. I think Brian is comfortable with a little bit more of the actual signage, like the sign band and some of the window signs than we had just discussed. And what does everybody else think about that?
I think so, keeping the sign backlit and the sign band, is that what we're proposing, right?
Mhm.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I think when you strip away the awnings on the second floor and the flag, and it's a little more elegant, I think, without the rest of that visual clutter. And I mean, their whole, like, I mean, I'm the target for that store. I'm within the target of it, of who their target customer is. And if you think of like the clean lines of their clothing and their whole thing is about timelessness and like everyday luxury, I think it's a nice complement to reduce the awnings and the names
Yeah,
everywhere.
I agree. I also think that the rendering doesn't represent, that stone is never gonna be white, never ever.
Right.
It's gonna be orangey and blotchy, and maybe a little white and a little this, and nobody cares, it's fine. So having kind of a rustic background will look good with then maybe these very crisp, more modern. I mean, I think that helps, rather than making it all real slick and perfect. It's sort of got a really lived in look, and then
Yeah, yeah.
so I think signs, you know, that's where the sign's supposed to be.
Okay, so yes to the sign band sign. Then, can you live with that, Zachary?
Yeah, yeah, no, I think Dean and DeLuca had nothing on the second floor. I am not supportive of the second floor awnings or any of that, so.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
So I think we know where we're going there then, and I think is everybody in agreement?
I would recommend they're going back to the drawing board and just having a real powwow, determining how much signage they can. Every one of those awnings has a sign on the skirt, for example. How much of that can they eliminate? That's what I recommend.
Take one more piece of jewelry off. Is that what you're saying? Just one more. That's it. Then it'll look perfect.
An executive session.
Finished, right? Was that the last?
So I think we're done, except for one thing, which is the budget. So did everybody get the email that Chanel?
Yeah.
That was that. That was over. Thanks for coming in.
For them, like, something
Wow.
like this, where it's kind of.
Oh, yeah.
To add degree revival, you
Yeah.
have to do the whole thing.
What's
And do some simple bars that work with the rake. Picking people off.
better?
We give that to them.
I know with tourists and all that.
So,
Know where we are.
Yeah.
Need to be.
And thank you for your great presentation.
What about
That's
painting?
really-
You feel-
Oh, no.
So,
Okay, let's focus on the
advertising
priority here. Oh. Thank you.
Bye.
Everybody.
My goodness.
I need this.
There they go.
All right, CB2 MR.
Right?
There you
Yeah.
That is something else.
Those were the requests last time around, and
Right.
let's focus.
Quiet, everybody.
All right, last year, sufficient funding for staff and capacity to ensure, one, prompt calendaring buildings and districts proposed for districts to ensure that modifications are not made that would render the consideration moot. Two, monitoring of approved applications to ensure that the work is carried out in accordance with the approved plan and that the final work conforms to the approved application. And, you know, we certainly have all seen plenty of situations where there has been a little disconnect there. Identification by staff of buildings with violations of work done without commission approval and those brought to the attention of the commission by the public, and that steps are taken to correct the violations. And funding to make the commission website more useful to the public with the addition of applications and their disposition for applications approved by staff violations and corrections, and easy access to applications to come before public hearings and their final disposition, including modifications requested by the commission. So I guess by that, we mean, to really see, to have a way to easily access what the commission has decided in relation to, so the public has a way, greater transparency, I think, is what really the essence of that is. Is there anything that anybody wishes to speak about? I mean, I think it makes sense to reiterate all of those things. And I guess, you know, we did write a proposal for this kind of intern person. So far, we haven't had a response, but I think if that happens, there's a nice way to connect that with these requests. Is everybody in favor of just?
Is this the only item we have on our budget? I mean, whatever that means, or is there a whole long list?
No, these are the operating budget requests, what I just read. Nothing in addition. And we have an email from Brendan Fitzgerald, who was unable to make it this evening. Wild cards would be funding for an oral history about LPC HP and changes in the CB or part-time archivist. I'm not really for a part-time. I'm not sure what he means by that.
Last year, the agency response to this was the agency believes the request for additional enforcement staff is reasonable. However, funding is not available at this time.
Well, I think we
So
should just keep asking. Yeah.
I think it's reasonable. They didn't push back.
Thank you for checking. Yeah, that's great.
So that's from the city agency.
That's it.
Need to add a little more.
I mean, it's always enforcement. It's communication and enforcement. So I think that as it was written last year encompasses.
I mean, it's not positive news that the mayor did a second PEG, which is a program to eliminate the gap, which is a 5% reduction across all city agencies. Doesn't bode well, but you have to ask.
Well, if you don't ask,
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
I think so
it's
too.
a little.
Verbose.
Yeah. No, yeah, you know me well. No, I think it's fine. We have to say something, and why not?
Okay.
Unless somebody has a.
And I can talk to Chanel, maybe I can make a pass at it and just simplify the language a little bit.
Yeah.
The intention.
I mean, resources, education. That's what it's about. That's so people understand what they're looking for, and don't just do whatever. It's even people who know a lot about it don't understand it or are frightened about it. And there's no need to. It's not. Shouldn't be that difficult to navigate.
Yes. All right. Great. Does anybody else have anything to bring forward?
New business?
Any new business?
No.
Okie dokie. Well, welcome, Ryder.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for zooming in.
My pleasure. Have a good night.
There you go.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Okay, if you're in Los Angeles, then you're zooming in from a place where something is from the 1950s, then it's vintage.
San Diego, so close. But the building I'm in right now is from, when is this from? 1920s. This is an old soap factory, so.
That's
somewhat of
very
a
nice
landmark.
background, I have to say.
Gorgeous.
I've been admiring the background, so that's nice. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Everybody, good night. Thanks, Eugene, for zooming.
Ooh, young man.
All
We're
right.
done.
How do we end it? Can we end the meeting?
Bye-bye.